My name is Anna Bennett, and at 36, I thought I'd seen the worst of my family's betrayal. But nothing prepared me for the moment I discovered my brother, Ethan, forged documents claiming he owned half of my thriving bakery chain in Austin, Texas. This is the story of how I uncovered his deception, dismantled his schemes, and reclaimed my life from a family that saw me as nothing but a cash machine. It's a family drama that turned a quiet Thanksgiving into a battlefield, exposing lies, greed, and a truth I could no longer ignore. I built Sweet Haven Bakeries from scratch after leaving the Air Force at 24, using my GI Bill to earn a business degree while working nights at a local diner. Every cupcake, every loaf of bread was a testament to my hard work, and yet Ethan thought he could steal it all. That day, I realized family could hurt worse than any enemy, and I would have to fight to protect everything I had built. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories. They're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Today, my 5 bakeries generate $1.5 million annually, employing 60 people: bakers, baristas, delivery drivers, and managers. It's a far cry from my childhood in suburban Austin, where I was the invisible older sister to Ethan, now 33, the family's golden boy. Our parents, Robert and Diane, doted on him, excusing his every failure while I scraped by on effort alone. Ethan got a new Jeep for his 16th birthday. I worked double shifts at a coffee shop to buy a beat-up sedan. Growing up, the favoritism was blatant. Ethan's C-average report cards earned him praise. My A's got a shrug. When he was caught stealing from a record store, Diane bought him a gaming console to cheer him up. Meanwhile, I juggled 2 jobs, waitressing and tutoring, to save for college, only to hear Robert say, "You're tough, Anna. You'll figure it out." After high school, I joined the Air Force, as college was financially out of reach. Ethan, however, got a full ride to UT Austin, funded by our parents' emergency savings that magically appeared for him. Serving in the Air Force taught me discipline, resilience, and a sense of independence I hadn't known at home. I quickly rose to the rank of sergeant, but the real turning point came when I used the GI Bill to earn a business degree while working nights at a diner. Every late-night shift, every exam, every moment of exhaustion was a step toward building the life I wanted, far from the shadow of favoritism. I didn't need validation from my parents. I needed a future I could control. Sweet Haven Bakeries started as a single tiny shop with mismatched tables and a borrowed mixer. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every cinnamon roll, every chocolate croissant represented my sweat and determination. Slowly, word spread. Customers came not just for the pastries, but for the warmth, the sense of home I infused into every corner of the bakery. Yet, success brought its own battles. Family gatherings, once moments of joy, became minefields. Ethan's constant reminders of his achievements and my parents' subtle comparisons gnawed at me. "Remember, Anna, Ethan could have been just like you," Diane would say, as if my hard work was an obstacle to his greatness rather than its own accomplishment. I smiled politely, but inside, the resentment grew. Over the years, I learned to mask my emotions, to smile through their backhanded compliments and exaggerated concern. I built walls around myself, protective barriers forged from disappointment and determination. The irony is that while I was busy perfecting recipes and scaling my business, Ethan was scheming. At first, I didn't notice the subtle manipulations, the casual reminders about how much he deserved recognition, the sly hints that he could take a stake in Sweet Haven. I trusted him, as a sister should, and perhaps that was my biggest mistake. When I finally discovered the forged documents claiming he owned half of my bakery chain, my blood ran cold. Betrayal from strangers is painful, but betrayal from family, especially from someone you once protected and guided, is a different kind of agony. pierced deeper, leaving scars that money or success could never erase. I confronted Ethan in my office, the hum of the ovens a comforting background as my hands trembled. "Why, Ethan? Why would you do this?" I asked, voice shaking between rage and disbelief. He shrugged, a smirk curling his lips. "I'm just claiming what's mine, Anna. You've always had everything handed to you anyway," he said, the audacity making my stomach churn. It was the same arrogance, the same sense of entitlement that had been nurtured by years of parental favoritism. My parents, when confronted, minimized the situation, suggesting I share to keep the peace. That was the moment I realized they had never truly seen me. Not my struggles, not my sacrifices, not my worth. Fighting back wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, about proving that years of hard work could not be stolen by deceit and entitlement. I hired a lawyer, meticulously documented every transaction, every original business license, every photograph of the bakery in its early days. The legal battle was draining, testing both my patience and my resilience, but I refused to be intimidated. I reminded myself of those nights at the diner, the Air Force deployments, the grueling exams, all the moments I had survived because I refused to surrender to circumstances. Sweet Haven was not just a business, it was the embodiment of my perseverance. Through the turmoil, I also learned to lean on my staff, who became my chosen family. Their loyalty and respect reminded me of the value of hard work, integrity, and trust, virtues my biological family had failed to uphold. Each victory in court, each reaffirmation of ownership, was a triumph not just over Ethan but over every subtle message of inadequacy I had absorbed growing up. It was proof that effort, honesty, and resilience could prevail even against manipulation and favoritism. Now, standing in the center of one of my bustling bakeries, the smell of fresh bread filling the air, I reflect on how far I've come. Pain of favoritism, the sting of betrayal, and the years of unacknowledged labor have shaped me into someone unbreakable. I've built more than a business. I've built a legacy, a life defined by my choices, my dedication, and my refusal to let anyone else dictate my worth. And while family drama still lingers at the edges of my life, it no longer controls me. I am Anna Bennett, baker, veteran, business owner, and survivor, and this is my story of reclaiming power, proving that resilience and hard work can overcome even the deepest family betrayals. I served 6 years in the Air Force, including a deployment in Kuwait, returning with a sense of discipline, resilience, and a fire to build something of my own. The military taught me how to plan, execute, and adapt under pressure, lessons I would carry with me into civilian life. By the time I left at 24, I was determined to take control of my future. College had been out of reach financially, but using the GI Bill, I earned my business degree while working nights at a local diner, sometimes going without sleep just to make ends meet. Each late night, each exam, each paycheck saved brought me closer to the vision I had of independence and success. Ethan, in contrast, had taken a very different path. After 2 years of college, spent mostly in fraternity parties and social events, he dropped out, claiming he was finding himself. Instead, he seemed content to drift, relying on our parents' support and any unemployment checks he could get. By the time I was 32, I had built 3 bakeries, each one a reflection of my dedication and creativity. Sweet Haven Bakeries had grown from a single shop with mismatched tables and a borrowed mixer into a small chain known across Austin for quality pastries and a warm, inviting atmosphere. I had also purchased a cozy home in Hyde Park, filled it with memories, and had a clear vision for creating generational wealth. Every investment, every expansion plan, every hiring decision was carefully calculated, driven by a desire to secure a future I could rely on, one free from the favoritism and chaos of my family. Meanwhile, Ethan bounced between dead-end jobs, sometimes disappearing for weeks at a time, surviving off unemployment checks, and relying on our parents' constant handouts. He had no direction, no accountability, and no understanding of the sacrifices it took to get ahead in life. Then he met Chloe. She was a social media influencer with thousands of followers, her life curated for the perfect Instagram aesthetic. Designer bags, Botox, $500 manicures. She embodied the kind of luxury Ethan had always wanted but never worked for. Chloe saw him as her ticket to a life of comfort and excess, while my parents adored her, convinced she would motivate their son to achieve more. In reality, she did the opposite. She fueled his reckless spending, encouraging vacations he couldn't afford and jewelry that went unpaid on credit cards. For years, I found myself bailing them out. First, the amounts were small, almost negligible. $300 to cover Ethan's electric bill, $500 for car repairs, things I justified as a sister's duty, a family obligation. Diane, my mother, would always call me with the sob stories, never Ethan, weaving narratives of hardship that tugged at my sense of responsibility. I sent the money without complaint, believing it was what family did. But over time, the requests escalated. $1,500 for a better apartment Chloe wanted to maintain her Instagram aesthetic. $2,000 for a medical emergency, which turned out to be nothing more than lip fillers. Each request chipped away at my patience, but I kept detailed records, hoping someday they would acknowledge my help. Ethan never did. Diane acted as if it was my responsibility to fund their lavish, reckless lifestyle. She never saw the sacrifices I had made, the countless nights I worked double shifts, or the years I spent building a legitimate business from scratch. The disrespect cut deeper than any financial strain. The breaking point came last summer. I remember the day vividly. I scrolled through Instagram during a short break at the bakery and saw Chloe's stories from a luxurious Miami resort. She was sipping $200 cocktails, lounging by infinity pools, laughing with friends. The caption boasted of a well-deserved getaway, the kind only the privileged can afford. That same week, Ethan called me pleading for $2,500 to cover medical expenses, something he claimed he couldn't manage on his own. I stared at my phone, the lines between family loyalty and exploitation painfully clear. I realized then that I had been their ATM for too long, enabling behavior that would never change. I called Diane that afternoon. "I can't keep sending money," I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. "You've been taking advantage of me, and I won't do it anymore." The line went silent for a moment before she muttered something about family duty and hung up. I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally set a boundary, and anger because it shouldn't have taken Instagram stories and financial manipulation for me to recognize how they treated me. I reflected on every dollar I had given, every sacrifice I had made, and how little acknowledgement or gratitude I received in return. It wasn't easy to say no. My parents and Ethan tried every tactic: guilt, manipulation, and even subtle threats of cutting me out of family events. But I knew that giving in would only perpetuate the cycle. Chloe's influence over Ethan, the way he leaned on me, and the way my parents excused everything had to stop. I wasn't just protecting my bank account. I was protecting my sanity, my autonomy, and my hard-earned achievements. I had spent years building Sweet Haven Bakeries, crafting a business from the ground up with my own hands. It wasn't just about money, it was about respect, integrity, and the recognition that my efforts mattered. The decision to stop funding them was liberating. I invested more time and energy into my bakeries, focusing on expansion, staff development, and new recipes. I realized that my value wasn't measured by how much I could provide for those who refused to acknowledge my worth. For the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment, the kind that comes from standing up to manipulation and reclaiming your life. Ethan and Chloe didn't take it well. There were tense calls, passive-aggressive texts, and awkward family gatherings where the tension was palpable. But I refused to give in. I had spent too long being complicit in their recklessness. Looking back, I see a clear line between who I was and who I became. The sister who once felt invisible, overshadowed by favoritism and neglect, had transformed into a business owner, a strategist, and a woman who refused to be taken advantage of. Chloe and Ethan represented the challenges I faced from family entitlement and exploitation, but they also became catalysts for my growth. The experience taught me lessons about boundaries, self-respect, and the importance of surrounding myself with people who valued honesty and effort. Now, when I see the bakeries bustling with customers, employees moving confidently around the kitchen, and community members praising the quality of our pastries, I know I made the right choice. I am no longer the family's ATM. I am Anna Bennett, a woman who fought for her independence, stood up to exploitation, and refused to let others dictate her worth. The betrayal of family can cut deep, but it can also ignite the determination to build a life defined by one's own effort, discipline, and vision. I learned that sometimes the hardest battles aren't with strangers, they're with the people who should love you unconditionally. And winning those battles is the most rewarding victory of all. Through all this, I've also started mentoring young women in Austin, teaching them financial literacy, business skills, and the importance of setting boundaries. I share my story openly, hoping they'll avoid some of the mistakes I made and recognize their own value before others try to define it for them. Sweet Haven Bakeries isn't just a business anymore. It's a symbol of resilience, independence, and the power of saying no when no is what's needed. I know the road ahead won't always be smooth. Family drama will linger, and there may be more manipulations or attempts to guilt me. But I've learned to trust my instincts, to protect my achievements, and to prioritize my well-being over misplaced loyalty. I am determined to continue growing my business, expanding my impact, and living life on my own terms. For every paycheck I once sent that went unappreciated, I now channel that energy into something tangible, something that represents my hard work, values, and unshakable independence. I refuse to be anyone's safety net anymore. I will support those who respect me, honor hard work, and contribute positively to my life. As for Ethan and Chloe, their lessons are clear. Entitlement and deception may temporarily benefit them, but resilience, discipline, and hard work always prevail in the long run. This chapter of my life has strengthened me in ways I could never have imagined, and I know that no Instagram post, family pressure, or manipulative plea can ever take that away. I am Anna Bennett, baker, veteran, entrepreneur, and survivor, and my life, my wealth, and my peace of mind belong solely to me. The real shock hit 3 months ago at a family barbecue, a sunny afternoon that should have been filled with laughter, grilled burgers, and casual conversation. Instead, it became the stage for a revelation that would shake me to my core. Chloe showed up wearing a brand new dress and an engagement ring that could easily cover a down payment on a modest Austin home. I recognized the piece immediately, $15,000, a massive solitaire that sparkled mockingly in the afternoon sun. She held it up, flashing a wide smile, and gushed to anyone within earshot, "Ethan always knows how to spoil me." Ethan avoided my gaze, muttering something about financing it while shifting uncomfortably as if trying to disappear into the crowd. The sight made my stomach turn, not just because of the extravagance, but because I knew exactly where the money should have come from. Later, Diane found me alone near the patio, her tone sweet but laced with expectation. "Anna," she began, "we're planning the dream wedding, but we need your help. $20,000 should cover most of it." I felt my jaw tighten. The audacity of it, after everything I had endured for them over the years, was staggering. I shook my head slowly. "I can't," I said, trying to maintain calm. Diane's face hardened instantly, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and entitlement. "If you can't help family," she snapped, "you're not welcome here." Her words cut deeper than I expected. For a brief moment, I felt the old pangs of guilt, the years of parental pressure, and the constant comparisons to Ethan. But this time, I refused to be manipulated. I walked away, vowing silently that I would cut them off from my finances, my time, and, if necessary, my life. A month later, a friend at a local bank called me. "Anna," she said, her voice unusually tense, "your brother and Chloe tried to get a $100,000 loan using your bakeries as collateral." My stomach dropped. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications sank in. They had gone beyond greed, they had committed fraud. I immediately requested copies of the documents. They were brazen. Ethan was listed as a 50% partner, with a fabricated title of Operations Director and an $80,000 salary. The bank had flagged the paperwork as suspicious, preventing immediate disaster, but the audacity of the act ignited a fury I hadn't felt in years. This was more than financial theft. It was an attack on everything I had worked for. I spent the next several weeks investigating quietly, determined to gather irrefutable evidence. I scoured Chloe's social media accounts, noting posts that bragged about our upcoming wealth and extravagant vacations. Digging deeper, I discovered her history: 2 previous marriages to wealthy men, both of which ended in divorces where she had walked away with substantial settlements. It was clear she had a pattern, and Ethan, drowning in $60,000 of debt from payday loans and credit cards, was her latest mark. He had hidden the financial mess from her, desperate to maintain a facade of wealth and competence. The more I uncovered, the clearer the pattern of manipulation became. Compiled everything meticulously. Screenshots of Chloe's texts calling me a bitter spinster, the forged loan documents from the bank, and a detailed report outlining her gold-digging past, all organized in a single digital file. I considered confronting Ethan directly, but the thought of dealing with his excuses and pleading seemed like a waste of energy. Instead, I took a different approach. I contacted Chloe's father, a prominent Austin real estate developer known for his obsession with family reputation. I sent him a carefully worded note along with the evidence. "Your daughter's marrying a broke man who tried to steal my business. Here's the proof." The fallout was swift and dramatic. Their wedding, which had been planned with pomp and extravagance, turned into chaos. I skipped the event entirely, choosing instead to focus on securing my business and my sanity. I later learned that Chloe's father confronted her at the venue, armed with the evidence I had provided. She panicked, fleeing the wedding, draining their joint bank account, and taking the wedding gifts with her. Carefully constructed illusion of wealth and security evaporated in an instant. Days later, Ethan called me. His voice was raw with despair, trembling as he sobbed over the phone. "She's gone, Anna. I'm broke and I owe $60,000, he admitted, the weight of his choices crashing down on him. I listened silently, a strange mix of satisfaction and pity welling up inside me. I couldn't deny a flicker of relief. The truth had finally caught up with them. But I also knew that this moment wasn't just about punishment. It was a harsh lesson, one that would force Ethan to confront the consequences of his actions. The weeks that followed were filled with tension and reflection. I reinforced security measures at my bakeries, double-checking financial records and employee contracts, ensuring that no further attempts at manipulation could succeed. I documented every interaction with Ethan and Chloe, maintaining a detailed ledger of debts, communications, and fraudulent attempts. I also began speaking to legal counsel to explore further protections for my business, realizing that even family members could pose serious threats when greed and entitlement were involved. Throughout this ordeal, I couldn't ignore the emotional impact. The betrayal from my own brother, once someone I had trusted implicitly, was a deep wound. But rather than letting it consume me, I channeled my energy into strengthening my business and nurturing the relationships that truly mattered. My staff, my loyal customers, and my close friends became my support system, my chosen family. Their encouragement reminded me that not all relationships are defined by blood, and that sometimes the family you choose can be more steadfast than the one you're born into. Reflecting on the events, I recognized how long I had been enabling destructive behavior. From small handouts to large sums, from ignored warnings to outright theft, I had tolerated too much. But the Miami debacle and the attempted $100,000 loan forced a reckoning. I realized that my boundaries were not optional, they were essential. Protecting my business, my future, and my well-being was not selfish, it was necessary. This revelation, though painful, became a turning point. In the aftermath, Ethan faced the hard reality of his choices. Without Chloe and with mounting debts, he had to reckon with his irresponsibility. Our parents, who had once excused his every failure, were confronted with the tangible consequences of their favoritism. And as for me, I emerged stronger, more vigilant, and more determined than ever to protect what I had built. Sweet Haven Bakeries, the chain I nurtured from a single small shop to a thriving business, remained intact, a testament to my perseverance, discipline, and refusal to allow manipulation to dictate my life. The experience also taught me lessons about trust, vigilance, and self-respect. I learned that financial generosity must be tempered with discernment, and that family loyalty does not obligate one to tolerate exploitation. I realized that it is possible to maintain compassion while enforcing firm boundaries. Most importantly, I learned that empowerment comes from standing up for oneself, even when the opposition is someone you love or thought you loved. Today, I continue to run my bakeries with pride and diligence. Trauma of betrayal lingers as a reminder, but it also fuels my determination. I mentor young entrepreneurs, teaching them not just business strategy but the importance of safeguarding their assets, maintaining professional boundaries, and valuing their worth. I share my story candidly, warning others of the dangers of blind trust and illustrating how resilience and careful planning can overcome even the most audacious acts of deceit. Ethan's failures, Chloe's manipulation, and the family dynamics that allowed it all to unfold have become more than just personal challenges. They are lessons I carry into every aspect of my life. I've learned that protecting one's achievements requires vigilance, that true loyalty is earned, and that self-respect must never be compromised. The ordeal cemented my understanding that independence is not just a goal but a necessity, especially when those closest to you fail to uphold basic honesty and integrity. Through it all, Sweet Haven Bakeries continues to grow, thriving not only as a business but as a symbol of resilience. Each loaf of bread, each pastry, each smile from a satisfied customer reminds me why I fought so hard. The attempted theft, the deception, and the betrayal were tests, ones I passed by refusing to bend to greed or manipulation. Ethan may have learned his lesson the hard way, but I emerged from the chaos stronger, wiser, and fully in control of my life. I am Anna Bennett, baker, veteran, entrepreneur, and survivor. The attempted theft of my business and the betrayal of my own brother could have destroyed me, but instead it became the catalyst for my growth. I now navigate family, business, and life with clarity, courage, and a commitment to protect what I've earned. I know my worth, and no one, blood or not, can take that from me. This chapter of my life, while painful, is a testament to perseverance, vigilance, and the uncompromising pursuit of one's own success. We met at a coffee shop near my flagship bakery, the smell of fresh espresso and baked goods surrounding us like a comforting shield. He looked broken, eyes red from sleepless nights, hands trembling as he fumbled with his coffee cup. "I need your help, Anna." "I'll lose everything," he said, his voice cracking under the weight of desperation. I leaned back, keeping my expression calm but resolute. Years of betrayal and manipulation had taught me to recognize the signs, and nothing he could say would pull me into the past. "You've used me for years, Ethan," I said firmly. "Never a thank you, never a question about my life. You and Chloe tried to steal my company. You don't get a bailout." I watched his face fall, the hope he had clung to for years fading. He begged, promising to change, insisting this time would be different, that he had learned his lesson. But I'd heard it all before, countless apologies, excuses, and empty promises. I took a deep breath and said the words that had shaped so much of my early life. "Figure it out." I echoed our father's old saying, the one he used when I was young and struggling, the one that used to sting but now felt liberating. "Face the consequences. Own your mistakes." I didn't say it with malice. I said it with clarity and conviction. This was the only way he would ever truly learn, the only way I could protect myself and the life I had fought so hard to build. 6 months later, the results were undeniable. Ethan filed for bankruptcy, finally facing the consequences he had avoided for so long. He started working nights at a warehouse, learning the value of earning rather than taking. Chloe, true to form, married a tech entrepreneur she met online, chasing her next opportunity with the same relentless ambition. My parents called occasionally, pleading with me to forgive family and let bygones be bygones, but I held firm. Forgiveness doesn't mean enabling, and I wasn't willing to compromise the boundaries I had finally set. My bakeries, meanwhile, continued to thrive. Sweet Haven Bakeries had grown beyond my initial dreams, expanding into new neighborhoods and attracting a loyal clientele who appreciated not only the pastries but the passion behind them. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs in Austin, teaching them not just about business strategy but about setting boundaries, protecting their assets, and valuing their worth. Every success felt like a personal victory, a testament to resilience, discipline, and refusing to let others dictate my path. Ethan texts occasionally now, no longer asking for money but tentatively trying to rebuild a connection. It's awkward and the past can't be erased, but I am open to seeing if he can change, if he can learn the lessons he so long resisted. This family drama has taught me that love doesn't mean tolerating exploitation, and sometimes the hardest boundaries create the truest freedom. If you've enjoyed this story and want more insights into navigating family drama, entrepreneurship, and personal growth, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps me share these lessons and stories with more people who might need them.